This video is student injury. So I have just explained the situation to my client, and I have come over to the sink to wash my hands. So I just had a little injury performing the service, nothing big, but just a little something on the back of my hand. So I'm leaving, and I'm going to come over here and wash. So turn the water on, and I'm going to wet my hands, and then I'm going to find my liquid hand soap and putting that coin-size amount in my palm and wash my hands. First thing we do is wash our hands. So we're going to rub our palms together. We're going to rub the back of our hands. Down to the wrists on both sides. And then we're going to wash our fingers. Back of our fingers. Between our fingers. Between our fingers and our thumbs. Fingertips and nails. Our wrists. And we made sure that where we went to wash our hands was at our first aid station, because we're going to be using some supplies that will be at the first aid station in just a minute. So we're going to thoroughly rinse our hands. And then we'll get a clean towel, or we'll find some disposable paper towels, which is what I have right here. And we're going to dry our hands off. If the cut was still bleeding, we would apply pressure over the wound with the disposable towel. But we don't. It's okay. So we're drying thoroughly here, and we're going to toss these disposable paper towels, and then we're going to find our hand sanitizer. And we're going to sanitize. 70% ethyl alcohol must be on the label. And once your hands are good and dry, you need to find your first aid materials. So I have a disposable bandage, and I also have single-use antibiotic ointment. We're going to pretend like this is single-use antibiotic ointment. So I'm first going to apply some antibiotic ointment to the wound, and we're going to toss it because it's single-use into the trash. Then we're going to open our bandage. And apply that to the wound. And because this is on our hands, which we would need to anyway right now for sanitizing, we are going to find a set of disposable gloves to apply, because we need to go to our workstation now and disinfect. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to head to our workstation, and we're going to bring back any implements that we were using, because they need to be properly cleaned and disinfected. So we're going to do that. Going over to our workstation, finding our implements, and we are now going to clean them. They would not have had a lid on them. I just went and got them from my workstation because I was using them and we're gonna bring them over to clean. So we're gonna identify our cleaning solution first, this one, and we are going to read manufacturer's directions on how to do the first step in cleaning the implements. So we've read that. Always want to follow those manufacturer's instructions. And we're going to do our first step in disinfection. And now we're going to take a minute to really thoroughly dry these implements before we move on to the next step in disinfecting them. The reason that you want to make sure everything is thoroughly dry is because you don't want to dilute the next step in the disinfection process. So we are taking our time to make sure that is the case. Okay, everything is nice and dry. So what we have to do now is we have to identify the next part of that disinfection, which means we have to find a cleanser that's bactericidal, fungicidal, and biocidal, and EPA approved for use in a spa or salon setting. So we have that right here, and for all intents and purposes, we're going to pretend like this is barbicide. I do have gloves on, but I'm going to change out my glasses for goggles. We need that protective gear. And then I'm going to check my barbicide. So it does have an EPA number on the back. It is anti-rust as well. And then I'm reading and following manufacturer's instructions. And since I'm pretending that this is barbicide, I know that formula. And that formula is for every 32 ounces of water, you need 1 ounce of barbicide. In order to fully submerge my implements, I only need 16 ounces of water, which means I only need 1 ounce of barbicide. So let's measure our water. And then we're going to cover up our implements with water. And then we're going to measure out our barbicide. So this is a 2 ounce. It's a quarter of a cup. I only need 1 ounce, which is half of this, or 1/8 of a cup. So I measure that, and then I'm going to pour it directly into the water, and I do not need to mix it. I'm going to put the lid back on. You also want to put the lid on your barbicide to disinfect. And then you have to set a 10-minute timer for this. That's the formula in the instructions. So we're doing the video, so for sake of the video, we're not going to set a 10-minute timer. We're just going to continue to move forward. So the manufacturer's instructions say that we need to rinse implements in extremely hot water. So that's the next step. We're going to do that right now. Everything should be really rinsed, and then we're going to do the same thing here where we do a real proper dry. We don't want anything to be stored damp. It would be gross and not maintain disinfection. So take your time. Excuse me. Cleanest implements in town, let me tell you. Cleanest, driest. Now you've got your protective equipment on. You want to leave that on. But first you want to close these guys up. And then we are going to store them in a nice dry area away, cool dry area away from any dirty implements or anything that could contaminate them. So they're going to go in a nice safe space. We have to go over to our workstation now where our client is, and we need to disinfect that. So we're going to get 2 wipes. We're going to pretend like these are those kind of wipes that would also be bactericidal, virucidal, fungicidal. We need 2. And we're going to leave that protective equipment on because we have to sanitize our area as well. So we're going to go over here where our client is. There's Miss Sue waiting. And so we've got 2 wipes, and we are going to start with the first. And once you are finished with your wipe, you can go to number 2 wipe. It should be dried, 2-minute wait, and then you can come in with the second wipe and just repeat the process everywhere that wipe number 1 went, getting it all nice and clean for Miss Sue. Or your client, rather. That's just what I call my client. And that happened, you would throw it away and you would go get another wipe because you would never use something that fell on the floor. So that's how you address that. You go get another one to finish up. And then once you're done, you can toss that. You're going to go back to the sink at the first aid station, and you're going to go ahead and take off your disposable gloves and throw them away because you've disinfected your implements and your station. You're going to take off your goggles, and then you need to wash your hands again. You're going to try to avoid, wetting the injury. This is one of those Band-Aids that's completely seals so the water doesn't get through. So lucky me. So I'm going to wash my hands. Hot. Wash my hands. So I've got to wet them. And I'm just trying to keep that area where the injury occurred away from the water if possible. But I do have one of those Band-Aids on that seals it off really nice, which is great. Good old hand wash where we start with our palms down to our wrists. And then we're going to wash the back of our hands. And because my injury is on the back of my palm, I'm going to work around it, of course, around the bandage rather, because it's covered. We're going to wash those fingers. And of course the backs of our fingers. Between our fingers and our thumbs. Washing is a process, and so you're definitely going to make sure that you're doing this for 20 to 30 seconds at a minimum. Wash your thumbs. That's required. And your wrists, of course. And then you're going to rinse a nice, good rinse. And once again, just be mindful of wherever your injury is, if it's a wound or a finger or a hand, etc., where it is. Try not to get it wet. Once again, I have one of those like waterproof Band-Aids on. And then you'll find the towel, or clean towel, or disposable paper towel to turn the water off so that you can thoroughly dry your hands. And after you get everything dry, you're going to identify your hand sanitizer, which should be right here as well. Toss that in the trash. Your hand sanitizer is 70% ethyl alcohol, and you're going to repeat your hand wash with your hand sanitizer. And you're going to need to do this and make sure that your hands get dry, because you have to put on, if your injury's on your hand here or finger, you can do a finger cot. My injury's on my hand, so I have to put gloves on before I can return to the service. So I'm going to put my glasses on. And I'm going to get a pair of disposable gloves. fresh and clean and new to apply to cover my wound or injury, which is already in a Band-Aid, of course. If it was somewhere else, like, you know, my arm or my leg or something, you would not have to put the gloves on. Depending on what kind of service you were doing. If that service requires gloves, you have to. But if you were doing something that you didn't have to use gloves. And that concludes the video for client injury. No, student injury, not client injury. Thanks.